Alright, we're back for another unboxing, and this one's for an RC boat that's come to us from Banggood. Now I'll have links in the video description for you guys to check out, so you can go and have a look and see what these things are worth. So this is the 4D RC high-speed RC boat. Comes fully ready to run. It's got the usual adjustments, got a low voltage indicator, it's got self-riding and an LED light on the back here, which is kind of a bit of a novelty, I think. It's available in the yellow and of course the silver as well. I got the silver one, as you can see, and this is pretty much everything you get out of the box. Now note that there are no tools or anything like that. There's no grease, so you might want to sort of read up on sort of what sort of equipment and tools you might need to work on these little guys. So first thing here is of course the manuals. Let's get into those right away. There's a couple of things here that are written in Chinese, so we'll put these away. And then the English manual is this one here, and it basically goes through all the basic information on how to set up your boat, where the battery goes, how to charge it up, what all the buttons on the radio do, and all that sort of thing, some maintenance, charging precautions, all that sort of stuff. So just hold on to that in case you haven't used anything like this before. We've got a little USB charger over here, so that just plugs into any USB type port, power brick, your PC or laptop, whatever. And then of course we've got the battery itself. Now believe it or not, I didn't know this was the battery. I thought the battery was missing, but it is actually the battery. And the way that this actually plugs into the boat, you can see there's no actual power lead per se. It actually plugs in via these little pins here. So it cradles into the actual battery tray, and then there's these little pins there that make contact, and that's what powers it up. So you are going to need to charge it only via the balance lead. So of course you're going to need to use the little USB charger. Now you might be able to make this out here, but they are 18500 batteries that are in here. It's a 7.4 volt, 1200 milliamp. That's the battery capacity. So on a little boat like this, 1200 milliamp should give you some adequate runtime, but we'll find out in a minute how much that will be. So that's the radio and the boat, and that's everything that you get out of the box. Okay, so moving on to the radio here and just some of the features that this thing has got. Now the radio does feel very toyish and very cheap. The trigger feels really light, not very well sprung to be honest with you, but I think for a boat this will be okay. The wheel actually has some good rotation, nice soft spring on there, it doesn't bang around too much, so that's pretty good. No collapsible antennas to break off. It does run some batteries under here, and it just kind of locked in place with this little thing, so you need like a Phillips head to unlock it and pop this open and put your batteries in. And then you've got some buttons on the back here. The on and off switch is underneath, just under here. And then we've got, is that on or off? I think that's off, yep. And then we've got this little cross section. So this is actually your throttle trim and your steering trim this way. So you can actually fix that up by those buttons. We've got the LED light button just over here. We've got a factory reset button in the middle, which I think is kind of interesting. I think what that might do, because these are all digital buttons, if you kind of messed everything up and you want to start from the beginning, you just press that and it might recenter all the trimmings. I think that's what that might do. And then we've got our 180. So this is our flip button. So if the boat actually capsizes, we can push that button and then the boat will self-ride itself. That is what my understanding is based on the instructions of the manual. Other than that, there's no other buttons, there's nothing else to it. It's a pretty simple radio, and hopefully it has enough range and it doesn't let me down, so I don't have to go swimming looking for the boat. Okay, so moving on to the boat itself. So as you can see, it's not a very big boat. It's probably, I don't know, 35 centimeters long, something like that. So it's not super huge. It's got a little rubber nose here. You can take this out. So the rubber nose is kind of here in case you're running it like in pool areas or anywhere where there's a wall or potential of collision. So you can pop that on there to protect the hull of the boat. And it's just flexible rubber, so it just kind of keys into place and just holds in there nice and easy. You've got this little tube here, which I'm not entirely sure what that's for, but I think that might be for the same purpose as this little screw underneath here. So these boats that sometimes have these little things kind of sticking out, what that is, and you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this, but this is so that it actually, the boat only works when it's making contact with the water. So as long as that stays wet, the boat will work. Obviously when it's upside down, it's going to need that same contact again, and I think that's what this little guy over here is for. So that will sort of, yeah, keep the boat working. It's a safety precaution, so you don't actually accidentally sort of chop your fingers if someone pulls the trigger while the boat is out of the water. It does have some little guide fins over here. These are non-adjustable, but they should help stabilize the boat a little bit. There's our rudder over here, really nice, small, neat little thing. We got our prop, we got our little LED light just under here. So this is the little novelty thing that they've incorporated with this boat, where you can turn the light on and off. I don't know if it changes colors. I haven't seen anything on this boat just yet. So I'm going in a little bit blind here. And then to open the hatch, you basically either turn this left or right. We're going to go right this time, just over here. And then to open the hatch, you kind of need to squeeze it together a little bit to try and get a bit of a grip, and the whole thing just kind of pops out. Now it's got a bit of a tongue right at the front here. So as you slowly slide this up, you can see it's got a really huge tongue that sort of slots into here, and then you need to sort of push that back down and lock it back into place. So just grip it again, and out it comes. It's got a rubber seal just on the inside here. It's like not really rubber, it's more like a foam seal that's on the inside. So that should hopefully prevent water from getting in there. There's our little cradle for the battery, and then the pins are actually on the upside here. So there are our pins just there. I don't know if you'll actually be able to see them, if the camera will allow, but the pins are actually just under here. And so when you install your battery, you need to make sure that, you know, the pins kind of lock into place over there. We do have some water cooling, so there is a pickup of water just underneath here, and then there is a tube that runs all the way through. You can probably see that there, and that runs all the way to the front where our motor and speed controller and everything would be in there, I presume, or underneath the battery tray. So everything's kind of well tucked away. There's also a steering servo back here, which is for your rudder. So that's where the steering servo is for the rudder itself. And that's it. So it's a really neat, clean setup. Not a lot of work that you really need to do. Even the coupling that they've got here just seems to be plastic. I'll rotate it so you can see what I'm talking about there. So that's not even replaceable either. So this is one of those things where it's like low maintenance, and you know, if or when it fails, I presume it's probably going to be pretty much done. That's my guess anyway. But that's it in a nutshell. So let's take it out and see how it runs. So upon opening the bag of the USB charger, a whole bunch of little tools and bits and pieces fell out. So we have a little Phillips head, we've got a little spanner, we have a spare propeller, which is awesome. And we have a spare little locking nut for your prop. And we also have a couple of spare little guide fins that you can replace in case those ones break or whatever. So they do give you some spares, they do give you some tools. Big plus there.
All right. Let's see how this goes. Takes a little bit of time to get up on plane by the looks of it. There we go. Pulling a little bit to the right. Oh yeah, that's right. The instructions said that this starts off at 80%. So you got to bump it up to go to 100. There we go. And then it gets going. It zooms around alright. Ooh. Does go in reverse as well. Pretty much underwater. Tends to the right really well. I don't want to go out too far because I'll lose signal. I'm not sure how far this will go. It zooms around okay. It's got that LED light which you can turn off. And now I guess since we don't really tip it over, we need to see if we can actually flip over. So let's have a look. Okay, so that's now upside down. Pushing the button. And off it goes. So it does work. It takes a bit to get up on plane. Once it gets going, it's not too bad. There we have it. It pulled up perfectly too.
Alright, so there we have it. That is the 4D RC little speedboat. And as you can tell by the running video, this is really aimed for beginners. It's not very fast, not certainly something that I would gravitate towards to purchasing, because obviously I've been in the hobby for a long time and this actually felt a little bit slow. But it was just as fun to drive this on the water. And I think personally it performed as advertised. I mean, I'm not entirely sure about the top speed of the boat. It's claiming to be about 45 k's an hour, but I reckon that might be on a downward current on a river or something like that, because on the lake it does take a little bit of time to get up on plane, and even when it does get up there, it's probably hovering around the 30, maybe 40 k an hour top speed. I'm not entirely sure if you hit the 45, but that's irrelevant, because for a beginner, someone that's never had anything like this before, they're gonna love it, right? It's got the self-righting feature, it's easy to set up, there's no sort of building that you have to do or any assembly that you've got to do on the boat. It's basically take it out of the box, charge up your battery, and away you go. The battery itself is actually really easy to use. It only charges via the balance lead just there with the USB, and that's got some LED lights in there to let you know when it's fully charged. It only plugs into the boat one way, so you can't mess up polarities or anything like that. And now, of course, if you've been into the hobby for a while, this battery is going to be a little bit annoying because you can't use a conventional charger to charge it up. But for somebody that's totally new and doesn't have anything, this will be just fine. It's got the self-righting feature, which works perfectly fine. It's got these little metal bits sticking out of the hull so that the boat only works when it's in the water, and that gives you a little bit of a safety barrier against the prop accidentally being powered on and hurting someone's fingers. The hull stayed perfectly dry as well. I didn't have any water getting into the hull while the boat was upside down. So that worked fine. If you notice that it's got a couple of droplets on the tongue here, this is a different compartment to what's in there. So that can get a little bit of water in there. It's not gonna, it's not gonna harm the electronics or anything like that. The boat does have a couple of built-in trim tabs on the back here, but yeah, it still struggled a little bit to get up on plane, which is probably my biggest annoyance as far as driving the boat or the boat itself. I just wish it had a tiny little bit more power just to make it a bit zippier and get up on plane a bit more, but it worked fine. I think for a beginner that'll be just no problem at all. My biggest complaint is probably just regarding the radio itself. The form factor of the radio is not great. First of all, it's not very stable standing it up this way, and you can't really put the nose down or lay it down on its back. I suppose on its back it's not too bad, but ideally you just want to have it laying down, because having it like this, it just, at least mine, maybe other ones will be, they'll have a slightly different mold, they might be okay. But also the handle itself has this little bump here that digs into the palm of your hand, which is kind of annoying. The trigger is not too bad and the wheel works just fine, but it is a little bit oversized, I feel. If this is going to be for beginners and young kids, they're going to have smaller hands, so they might struggle with a little bit with the bigger wheel. Now, as far as functions go, you've got the LED light button, which worked. You've got the self-riding button, which worked. Steering trim worked just fine. On and off button worked just fine. And of course, you got your throttle dual rate, which also worked. And I guess that's one other annoyance that I have with the function of this particular boat. Every time you power it on, it only comes on at 80%, and then you have to adjust the throttle dual rate up to 100%. And this is actually written in the manual itself. It actually says here, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, but it says that it comes up at 80%, and then you keep pushing this button until you get to 100. And every time you push it, you're increasing in increments of 2%. So you got to push it about 10 times to get 100% power out of the boat. So that's probably the biggest annoyance, because every time you power it on, you got to go through that process. And also the steering trim recenters or goes back to normal. So you have to adjust your steering trim and your throttle dual rate every time you power the boat on. That's one of the annoyances that I found with it. But you know what? It comes with a little rubber nose in case you're running it in pools and you don't want to be smacking to the walls and damaging the hull. It's got some tools and some spare parts as well to help you work on the boat. And you know, it comes in a couple of different colors as well. And when you take into account the price point of this boat, it's actually not that bad at all. Now, Banggood did supply me with the discount code of 12%. I'll have that in the video description for you guys to check out. So be sure to enter that in if you are going to buy one of these. I'll have a link in there to where you can get one as well. And I actually put one in my cart to find out how much it was, and it came up to about $7 or just under $77 Australian, which is actually not bad at all. When you take that into account, you know, and given that it ticks actually a lot of boxes, it's a good little beginner boat, I feel. But for now, I'm going to leave this one here. I just want to say again a big thank you to Banggood for supplying the boat for review. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button before you go. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll be speaking to you all next time.